Welcome to the On Stage podcast, where we interview musicians and members of the entertainment community. Hello, everyone. You would not believe who we have on our platform. Deke Sharon. You actually, you would not believe. Okay, so he's a singer and arranger, composer, director, producer, television producer, and teacher. And this guy was raised in San Francisco. He started singing in choir groups at age 5, including the San Francisco Boys Choir. And he attended all of these other venues, including where he sang lead, second tenor. This is excellent. So, Deke, can you give us
Yes.
a little bit of a background of who Deke Sharon is, where you grew up, and why did you choose this mode of music?
Wow, that's tough. I mean, I don't think people necessarily always have perfect insight into why they do the things they do and why they made the choices they made, but I'll do my best. I sang from a very early age. In fact, my parents were worried I was giving myself brain damage because I would sing myself to sleep in my crib, bouncing my head on my pillow before I could even speak. And so as soon as I turned 5 years old, they signed me up for the local church choir. By age 7, they signed me up for the San Francisco Boys Chorus. And by age 9, I was the youngest member of the touring ensemble in operas with Pavarotti and, missing the first month of fourth grade going up to Alaska with all the older boys. I was the little tow-headed
Wow.
blonde in the front corner of the photos from that era. And I loved it. I loved singing. There's just something fundamental, I think, about the human experience when it comes to the voice. We are animals, and like birds and crickets and whales, we have the ability to connect and communicate through
Hmm.
tone. That's just something that is fundamental to the animal kingdom and fundamental to communication. And music must have been the first artistic form for us. I mean, look at so many creatures and birds out there singing to each other. So I think we're all hardwired to sing. I was just lucky enough to be able to find a way to make a career of it.
Well, what about blue whales? Remember in the Star Trek
Sure.
movie Voyage
Yeah.
Home, the whales speak to each other. Do you think they harmonize with one each other? They speak to themselves in a cappella, sort of like a
Interesting.
harmonization.
That is a question I've not gotten before. I'm not sure that other creatures intentionally harmonize with each other. I think the concept of melody is very importantly imprinted on different creatures. Let's use birds for example. And in fact, they've studied why people like really are interested in certain music when they're teenagers and in their young 20s, and then by the time they're 50, they love listening to the music that they did when they were kids. Well, in the bird kingdom, the sounds and the songs that birds hear when they're in a certain age of adolescence end up being the songs that they sing and communicate with over the course of their lives. So there is something fundamental to the nature of being hardwired and uh, accepting certain melodies as our own. But I don't believe there are any creatures in the animal kingdom that actively, intentionally sing in harmony with each other in the sense that we think of it, where there are different ratios between pitches and people choose to sing different pitches together because they're pleasant. Um, I think when you hear multiple creatures together, it's simply because they are doing their own melodies at the same time. But I would be very, very happy to be proven wrong. And if anybody knows differently, please reach out and let me know. That'd be the most fascinating science story of the year, as far as I'm concerned.
What about parrots speaking to each other? What if you have two or three parrots? Do they like they talk in human speech? But is it really human speech? Isn't
Well,
it? Do
it's
we just
mimicking.
perceive it?
It's mimicking. I mean, they
Yeah.
parrots and other birds of their ilk are just incredible mimics. They end up having not
Mhm.
just the vocal cords, but really it's the instrument above your vocal cords, right? It's your soft palate and the shape of your mouth and the resonance of your head and your nasal cavity and all that. That's what gives us speech that other primates don't have. They don't have the ability to make such a wide range of sounds. Well, parrots are further down that chain. They're able to imitate car horns and Starbucks blenders and people's speech and birds and other kinds of songs. And although their voices couldn't get as low, I'm sure if they could, they'd be able to imitate whales. but they're not communicating in that sense. I think the real communication that ends up happening, you end up finding in higher order mammals, primates being the best example, but because gorillas and chimpanzees and bonobos and orangutans and the like, they don't have the vocal apparatus to be able to speak to us. They hear us, they know the words, they can understand them, but then they need to use sign language to communicate back to us. And then they can even create words. There's a famous tale of I believe some ape having watermelon for the first time and naming it candy fruit. Putting together different
Wow.
concepts they understand. So there is a great deal of intelligence out there, and I know that other apes would speak if they could, and of course sing, but the mechanics aren't there for them.
Because dogs don't communicate, and cats certainly don't communicate. You hear that? And you know,
Well, I think dogs do communicate. I mean, they have different barks. They
right?
have different body language. They have the wagging of their tail. And if you watch experienced trainers, they actually teach the pet owners and families how to read the signals from the animal to tell if the animal is excited, distressed, frustrated. And in fact, side story: when my now oldest son was an infant, it was very early in the days of teaching babies sign language before their vocal apparatus was able to be able to
Wow.
communicate and speak. Um, and I was a child development expert and studied in major in college as well as music. And I read about this and I thought this is super fascinating. Children often whine and cry, particularly boys, because boys develop later because boys are modified women. Like, we have the X and the Y chromosome. They've got two X chromosomes. So we have to load in the additional operating system on top of everything. And so we're a little slower. Um, and boys, in particular, would whine and cry a lot when they got around a year of age because they were not able to communicate as well. So I
Wow.
thought, okay, let's follow this theory and let's do what primate specialists are doing and teach my kid just a few sign language signs when he's young. And it worked like a charm. And he could do more, and he could do milk, and he loved lights, and he loved fires as well, but we taught him the wrong signal. Fire is like your fingers, like four fingers going up and down crackling like a fire, but we looked up the wrong word in the ASL dictionary, and like kind of a hand swipe for fire. And there was a fireplace in Starbucks, and he got so excited he'd go in every morning and kind of go fire fire to all the people who were working there. What he was actually saying is, you're fired. So thankfully, he didn't have that kind of authority in their hiring. But bottom line, as soon as he was able to speak, the sign language disappeared pretty quickly, and I'm not sure he even remembers any of it anymore.
Well, I digress. I forgot that there's this video I've seen of this I don't hearing impaired man who's eating, and there's a
Mhm.
cat, and the cat knows that his master can't hear, so he devises a way to communicate, and he goes like this, touches him,
Mhm,
and he
mhm.
knows that that cat's hungry. But the cat was able to pick up sign language, which I think was kind of amazing. It's an old
That's
video.
interesting. Yeah, cats are
But
intelligent. They're just not
yeah,
particularly social. So I think the challenge is, I mean, there's some cats who have been toilet trained. I've read, so things can happen in the animal kingdom in a pretty amazing way, but not
you're right.
every animal has the same abilities or the same interest level, frankly, in
You're
uh,
right.
in communicating. But there's no question. I think every pet owner has a way of being able to tell when their animal in there, unless it's a goldfish, when they're hungry.
This is excellent. Yeah, it's amazing how talented and intelligent animals like cats are. Yeah, so I'm reading about how you were second tenor in a barbershop quartet in your freshman year, the Music Man. Can you tell me, like I've seen a lot of barbershop quartets. How do you start one and how do they end up singing so in tune and in sync? Like what's the process for that?
Excellent question. So barbershop really was the contemporary a cappella of 120 years ago, and people don't realize this, but it was an African American music form. Sadly, the organizations that kind of preserved it, that were born in the late 30s in the South, were segregated. So now people think of barbershop quartets as being, four white guys with straw hats and striped vests. But in point of fact, that's not the way the music started. And barbershop really, especially through these wonderful preservation societies who have rectified their actions, obviously at this point, and are open to everyone. There's a strong competition and judging component to their societies and organizations, and quartets compete each year, and so they focus more and more on kind of an arms race of complexity of arrangement and precision of aligning the sound of their voices. So really what you're hearing when you're hearing a barbershop quartet is four people who are trying to sound like the same person most of the time. And that same person is the lead voice. It's the second voice from the top, the second tenor, as you correctly pointed out. And usually they have or always they have a bass singer on the bottom who occasionally throws a bum, bum, bum in between
Hmm.
the different lines. And then there's a tenor above and a baritone who sings below much of the time, but sometimes hops above the lead vocal to really round out the chords and turn them into four-part harmony. And there are many coaches out there, many great musicians who help work with quartets to get them to really align their vowels, and not just one vowel, but even moving through vowels. So people don't realize like the number of diphthongs that exist in the English language,
Mm.
particularly as we speak and sing. So if you're going to sing the word wow, it's really an oo
Wow.
vowel to an ah vowel to an oo vowel. And so if you have four people who are singing wow, you want to make sure they not only, you know, sing the right notes at the right time, but they also go ooh, wow, exactly
Oh,
aligned, because
yeah.
there are four dimensions to all music. There's the fundamental pitch, right? The frequency of the wave. There's the amplitude of the wave, which gives you the volume level, the dynamics, and you want the balance of those parts to be right. You have the duration of the wave, which with other spaces in between give you rhythm. And then there's the timbre of the wave, which is based on the overtones. And so I could sing for you pitches that have the same fundamental, frequency, dynamic level, volume, and duration with different timbres. If I went e, ah, o, u, and that fourth dimension are the overtones, which we use our nasal cavity and our mouth and our soft palate and everything to shape our tongue. If you've ever heard
Yeah.
overtones singing, it's really emphasizing different overtones that naturally occur above the fundamental pitch. So the thing that makes barbershop quartets and choruses sound so amazing is they're not only focusing on making sure their pitches are in perfect tune and in rhythm and the same and correct volume levels so that all of the chords ring, but that all of those overtones are aligned as well.
Well, so where do baritones, baritenors, and I guess there won't be any sopranos in the barbershop quartet, or
Well,
are
okay,
they?
so in a barbershop quartet that is a female or a mixed quartet, they still use the same nomenclature. So if
Mm.
you have what we would consider in the choral music world SSAA, soprano 1, soprano 2, alto 1, alto 2,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the Sweet Adeline world, they call it tenor, lead, baritone, bass, even though they're singing soprano and alto range. So the tradition is still attached to these kind of male specific vocal parts, but the ranges shift up about a sixth. And
Mm.
women sing just the same as men. In fact, there are more female barbershop singers than there are male barbershop singers in the world right now. And there are more people who sing barbershop outside of the US than within it, even though it is a distinctly American music form.
So the I guess a cappella and barbershop is the same thing. So when you're talking about barbershop quartet, I guess the girls singing a pitch perfect were considered a barbershop quartet? Or was it
Not
totally different?
exactly. All barbershop is a cappella, but not all a cappella is barbershop. Barbershop
Okay.
is a very specific technique and
Hmm.
style within the overarching category of a cappella. A cappella simply means without any instruments, singing harmony without any instruments. So any doo-wop without instruments is of course a cappella. There's a lot of vocal jazz that doesn't have any instruments, like if you hear Singers Unlimited and Manhattan Transfer when they don't have a band
Hmm.
behind them. And Of course, barbershop is in that category. Contemporary groups with vocal percussion, everything, they're also a cappella. And there are also groups like Ladysmith Black Mambazo who sing in the Mbube and the Isikamaya tradition in South Africa. That's a cappella. Gregorian chant is a cappella. Sea
Yes.
shanties are a cappella. So it's
Yeah.
really like, it's a huge wide net. And all of these different styles of music are all being enjoyed right now, particularly right now in December during the holidays in any Christian focused countries, because everybody loves Christmas carols, and the sound of voices in harmony really is the prototypical sound of the Christmas spirit.
Yes, love Christmas songs, Christmas music. I heard some really good ones in a cappella. When does it stop being a cappella? As soon as music is played?
Well, yeah, and there are sometimes a cappella breakdowns. So think about that classic Doobie Brothers song, Black Water. It has an a
Hmm.
cappella breakdown in the middle of it. Basically, it's a cappella when there aren't any instruments and you have people singing alone or most of the time in harmony. So there's more going on. Yeah. In fact, the word a cappella comes from the Italian meaning in the style of the chapel. So if you had a full mass, you'd have the organ and you'd have, instruments going on, and maybe, the big choir on a Sunday or whatever. But if you had a little baptism in a side chapel on a Tuesday, you might just have a few singers in there who were accompanying the service, the ceremony, or whatever. And so the word a cappella in the style of the chapel really came to mean without instruments, singing with just voices.
What about people who can do different instruments with your voice, like Tom
Oh,
Thumber?
well, this is a specialty of mine. Vocal trumpet and a muted trumpet and electric guitar and so many other sounds, and of course, vocal percussion. I
That's
mean, that's
awesome.
a big part of what's going on in contemporary a cappella, but it is still a cappella because it's the human voice, like parrots, were able to mimic a lot of different sounds.
Hmm.
And really, a big part of what made the Pitch Perfect movies so successful and groups like Pentatonics really take off, and the TV show, The Sing Off, that I was the music director for, the
Hmm.
excitement around contemporary a cappella now, the modern sound of a cappella, is in part because instrumental imitation has really become a fundamental part of the style and the sound, so that people can use their voices to sound just like a song that's on the radio.
Well, read somewhere that you actually helped the actors and actresses from Pitch Perfect to perform like they
That's right.
did. You were
Yeah, I
part
was
of
the
that,
music
right?
director for it, and one of the arrangers, and worked with the whole music team, and we recorded them all right there on site. But I gave them a cappella lessons. I mean, in the first music rehearsal we had, sitting down, all of them, 9 of the 10 had never done a cappella before and actually hadn't even really sung in school choir. A couple had done musical theater and things like that, so they'd done a little bit of harmony, but the concepts of like blending vowels and singing complex parts and holding your own part and doing all this while you're dancing or whatever. I mean, they had to be taught from scratch. And obviously, we got them there. It was that real loss of sleep month during acapella boot camp making the first movie, that I can tell you with no uncertainty whatsoever. But somehow we pulled it all together, and yeah, we platinum
Okay,
soundtrack album and everything.
I gotta know, who was the most difficult to work with? Brittany Snow, Anna Kendrick,
Oh,
Anna
no, no, no.
Camp,
No, 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 I love all of
Sean
my
Astin?
children. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no names, no names. The bottom line is different people do different things differently. So some of them are great sound mimics, but maybe their rhythm isn't that great. Or some of them tune really well, but they aren't as good at matching vowels or whatever. So as I began to know their voices better and their vocal ranges and whatever, I was better able to arrange for their voices and put them in the right parts. So when we came around
Wow.
to make the second movie, it was much easier because also some of them don't read music and they have their own notational systems. They have their own way of learning. Some did it by ear. Some liked looking at sheet music. Some, took it in by osmosis in small bits or whatever. And learning how each one of them learns made it much easier when making the second movie. And it is their own voices on every recording. You're hearing them sing their own parts.
That's amazing. Yeah, I heard some really bad a cappella and some really bad harmonization, but hey, people like them. Like, okay, well, who am I to say? but it was real. Those movies were really good, and but I've read that, like, for the sing off, for instance, says that you fixed it. What did you fix? What was wrong with it?
Well, there wasn't anything wrong with the performances on the Sing Off. I thought the thing that was really beautiful about that show is we had an opportunity to show America and the world, because I also made the show in the Netherlands and in mainland China and in South Africa.
Wow,
We had an opportunity to show them what was going on in a cappella right now with vocal jazz and barbershop and collegiate groups and modern pop and country a cappella and Puerto Rican Latin a cappella. Like, we really got to show all these different sounds and styles. And in fact, Time Magazine wrote a beautiful article that said the best reality show on television right now is the Sing Off. And they said, like, stick with me. All these other shows, all the people are just there to like show everybody else up, and I'm just in it to win it, and I'm not here to make friends, and all those kind of aphorisms. And the bottom line is, on the Sing Off, the groups all supported each other, and there was a wonderful sense of camaraderie that you saw in the opening numbers. And when one of the groups got voted off the end of the show, you saw real tears from the other groups who were really sad that their friends were going to be going home and not there with them through this entire experience. So there was something incredibly powerful and uplifting about the connection between all of the people that we had backstage. And that was very intentional by my design. I wanted them to support each other, and I wanted them to show what our a cappella world is really like. And then they got up there on stage and they got one chance, literally one chance, to
oh
perform for the judges and the audience to make it perfect. And we did not do retakes. We did not give anybody an opportunity to do it over or anything like that. So if they
wow.
dropped a lyric, they dropped a word, whatever, that's the way it was. And so it was much harder than doing something like The Voice or American Idol, where you have a professional band behind you and you're just singing the melody. I mean, really, a cappella is like singing with no net.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested. Like, in the first movie, you had to riff off. Remember when
Oh yeah, of
Becca was told about the
course.
riff off, and she goes,
Yeah,
"What the hell is a riff off?" So
yeah.
how long did it take to put that together? Because you have, first, she does her little rap and nobody knows the song except a few. And then she sang a different song, and then everyone, how did they how do you get them to join in to make it in sync, like, pretty quickly? Like, how long did it take to
It
do
was
that
okay.
scene?
The rehearsal process for that was an enormous headache, because
Yeah.
we had to arrange up the songs, and
Hmm.
they had to like work for story reasons, right? And the connection between the songs and everything like that. And then I had to rehearse each of the groups separately and individually. And then we had to start having some rehearsals with all of them together, where they're like stopping and starting in the dialogue and the awkwardness. And then all of a sudden they launch into a song and whatever. The timing of it was really challenging. But the beauty of making a movie is you cut it all together in post. So once we like shaped out the scene and we made sure it all worked well, they all went in the recording studio, recorded all their parts, and then on set they were lip syncing to themselves. And that's
Oh.
really and that's not cheating at all. In fact, there are only a couple movies that have ever been made in history that had live music going on. So every
Hmm.
music, every musical, every TV show as well, like all of it is lip synced, because you can't control the cameras and the lights and the video and the movement, all that kind of stuff, as well as the audio, like at the same time. So I remember when Round Midnight was made in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it was 88, some 87, the jazz movie with Dexter Gordon, Herbie Hancock, and Bobby McFerrin, all these jazz greats. They actually recorded the sound as the movie was being filmed. But these are jazz musicians, and they were being filmed on a jazz stage performing. Like, it was, and then what do? They stand there and play their instruments. So that made sense. But to do it with everybody flying around on stage and all the choreography and all of, like, it was just, it would have been impossible. And that's exactly how they did it in Singing in the Rain and every other movie musical. So we're in good company.
So I take it acoustics is good for a cappella. So the more better acoustics, the better the a cappella sounds.
Well, the acoustics really differ in different locations. So if you're going to be doing Gregorian chant, if you're going to be singing a long, slow liturgical piece or whatever, you love and want the sound of those big stone walls, the echoey cathedral, because the music's designed for that and it resonates and it sounds gorgeous in there. But take a modern a cappella, band like Pentatonics or Home Free, and have them do an up-tempo
Hmm.
song in there with vocal percussion. it'll sound like a giant washy mess. So they'll sound better in a club, they'll sound better in a hall, they'll sound better in an arena. And in fact, they have the ability then to digitally put a particular reverb tail on the songs. And when they do a slow song, they'll have a longer reverb tail. The sound design and the person who's mixing them will end up making sure that the technical aspects of what's going on with their voices is appropriate to each song. So yes, bottom line, that concept of doo-wop groups looking for an echo, going down the stairwell, going in the men's room, going to the subway for that great reverb, absolutely the case. And that's what music was for most of human history. But now that we're dealing with powerful recording techniques and digital, reverbs and all that kind of stuff, usually it's better to be in a drier, it's called a drier space, one where there's not a lot of built-in echo, and then you can add it afterwards. But when it's the holidays, those wonderful groups like Chanticleer and your local church choirs or whatever performing in the local chapel or whatever, those acoustics are perfect and the songs are designed for that.
Do you believe in auto-tune, or you got this vocal group, they sound great as a cappella, but just have to tweak you in the software just to make you sound better? So is that cheating?
Not cheating. It's not cheating. Photoshop is used perpetually. Every single photo, like, oh, let's make the white a little cleaner. Let's fix this yellow. His tie was ruffled here. Like, it's fundamental to the way in which we are experiencing media and the arts. I mean, find me a movie without any elements of CGI, right? Nowadays.
Mm.
So I don't think it's cheating, but what I tell artists and musicians all the time when we go in the studio to record, I can fix your pitch. I can fix your rhythm. I can't fix the vibe. I can't fix the energy. And the bottom line is there are a lot of recordings out there that are technically quote unquote perfect. They're flawless from a technical standpoint, but, ooh, nice balloons, but they are by no means emotionally compelling. And that is what matters. So I don't think it's cheating. What it is it's allowing you to use some of the modern digital technology to, spruce things up a little bit around the sides. But passion and heart and human connection, that is what will draw us to the arts till the end of time.
So is it possible that a cappella group can screw up so badly that you have to replace a few members here and there just to get it perfect? Or is it like, you know what? It's not working, or you're not working, but we'll try. If not, we'll have to let you go, sort of thing? Or is that like, well, we have NSYNC, we have Backstreet Boys, so we have to work with
I
them?
mean, look, personnel changes all the time. People lose their voices, their problems. And I have a little joke that I, work with singers all the time. And I tell them, here's the thing. Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, not all of them had to be great singers, but they all had to be great dancers. So why do we think of them as a vocal group when in fact they're actually a dance troupe that sings, right? Their dancing was better than their singing. They usually had like two great singers and three pretty good singers, but five great dancers. Anyway, little side joke there. Um, yes, there are times when people have to be replaced, particularly if it's a professional ensemble, but this happens in rock bands too. If your drummer has a substance abuse problem, or look at the issue with Boys to Men. When they first started out, they had four members, and their
They were
bass
good.
ended up having some medical issues. He ended up having to leave the group because he couldn't tour. And the same thing, Steve Perry left Journey because he had some
Hmm.
medical issues and he wasn't able to go on the road. And they were like, guys, we got to, go on the road. And he was like, forget it. You're pushing me too hard. Um, and I know Avi for Pentatonics, like he was exhausted by the number of Billboard awards and all these things that were going on for the group. And he needed to slow down and do his own music. So it happens all the time that there are personnel changes in all kinds of vocal ensembles and bands. And that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and the Blind Boys of Alabama are pretty good too. I like
Oh, they're
that group.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fairfield 4, I mean, what, they've been together 80, 90 years now. It's not the same guys all the time, but that happens. You rotate out members and keep the tradition moving forward. The Kingsingers are not the six original members, and the real group in Sweden just cast five new members, and the tradition goes on.
So you were talking about earlier about pre-recording their voices and then adding it later. So I take it when Becca and Chloe and all the group were doing the whole "Don't forget about me" number at the end. They
Yep.
weren't actually singing on stage. That was added later because I know
Right.
that Britney Spears, Madonna, when they're singing, you ever danced and sung at the same time? That's impossible.
Well, no, it's hard. Yeah, but it wasn't added later. What we did is I had group rehearsals with all of them to teach them the music.
Hmm.
Then I had one-on-one solo rehearsals with every single one of them, and they had to sing their part for me perfectly. Then we would send them in the recording studio we built on set. They sang their part there. Then we would mix all of it down, and then I would send the recording to each of them so they could practice dancing and singing along with themselves. And
Wow.
then we filmed it. So we didn't add it later, we created it beforehand, and then they danced and lip synced and sang along to themselves on stage. That's the standard way to do it. And that's how you, like I said, like that's how you have to film a movie. You're not going to get it all done otherwise.
It's amazing. I actually love that movie. I've seen Pitch Perfect like 12 times, and the second one, I wasn't too thrilled with the third one, but I love them all
Me
because I love
either.
singing.
I'm not going to lie to you. That's not. I think the first two are leagues above the third one, and I think it wasn't my choice, but I think we went off the storyline a bit and had much less acapella in the third movie, and I think it made the movie not as good. Kind of messed with the brand a little bit. The storyline wasn't as strong, and there weren't nearly as many vocal moments in it.
The first one was great. So yeah, you were in the second, I think, in the third movie.
Yeah, I was on camera in the second movie, but I was, music director behind the scenes on all three of them and arranging and making sure that all the acapella moments were the way they should be.
Did you request that, or did you
Oh, I got a
say,
phone call from Elizabeth Banks while I was working on the sing off. She basically called me and said, "We're making this acapella movie." And the book, Pitch
wow,
Perfect, is a nonfiction book, and there's a chapter about me in it and calls me the father of modern acapella. And she basically said, "Everybody tells me you're the guy. Like, we need to have you. You want to come make this acapella movie?" And I said, "Sure, let's make an acapella movie, of course."
it's amazing. Wow. Yeah, the movie was great, and your part was great. So what about reading comprehension? So you have to pull the most important information from the lesson. Like, how do you, how important is reading comprehension and defining key concepts in a cappella music?
Well, it is quite possible to sing a cappella and to sing it very well without being able to read music. Pavarotti didn't read music. That didn't really stop his career at all. He would have vocal coaches who would teach him by ear. Paul McCartney supposedly can't read music, but he has incredible musical technique. Now, I'm not suggesting that people don't learn music theory and don't learn to read music. It's an enormous hindrance, and you have to be a genius to have a career at music, not being able to read it. But it is possible, and most a cappella didn't involve any sheet music or whatever until all of it until the year 1000, when our modern notational system was created by Guido d'Arezzo for Gregorian chant.
Mhm.
Before that, everything was was by ear, right? And a lot of pop styles, even till today, folk music and, like I said, sea shanties and work songs and things are taught by ear. People learn and sing by ear, and it's absolutely valid way to make music. And there are great groups like Take Six as well. One guy,
Mhm.
Mark Kibble, will come up with an arrangement at the piano, and he'll teach all the guys their parts by ear, and they'll sing it by ear.
That's wow. Makes me want to, like I'm a tenor and a vocalist, but it makes me want to go into a cappella music because it sounds fun. You get into community, you get to know people.
Oh yeah.
But and you're thinking about Gregorian chant, we got that. Oh, I sing the Handel's Messiah almost every Christmas, and
Okay.
one Christmas you have this. Oh, this that you can. It's like he was so loud you could. It kind of like you ever get that musician, the a cappella musician. Their voice just permeates, so all you hear is them. You don't hear anybody else, and it was like, oh,
Too
it's not
much.
what I
Yeah.
wanted.
Well, blend is important, and and dynamic level, the volume level is important to make that work, and matching your vowels and all of that. The idea behind a choral sound is that is the combination of voices, and you don't want any one person to stick out unless they're singing the lead vocal in front of everybody.
Yeah. What about information recall? Like you're given a song, and because you can't read music, you have to know the song.
Mhm.
How difficult it is to learn the song to singing the song. What do you find most difficult for someone to learn from you, a cappella or the song?
Well, all of the different parts in a cappella are a part of the song, but absolutely some of the background parts can be really challenging if they're singing chicka chicka chow chicka wow wow chicka wow chicka wow wow chicka wow wow, or I mean I just made that up, but
Yeah.
a lot of the inner rhythms, the inner parts are more complicated. In a barbershop quartet, the most complicated part is that baritone line that sings all the leftover notes jumping up and around the lead vocalist. Um, Usually, the lead vocal is the easiest part because it's the melody and you already know it. The second easiest part, unless it's really rangy and jumping all over the place, is often the bass line because it's really
Mm.
melodic and usually has an element of repetition and hits the roots of the chords on the downbeats. And so there's a real sense of melody there as well. And then the next easiest part usually is the top part of all the background vocals because it also wants to have its own kind of melodic shape floating above the top of everything like a descant. And then it's those inner voices that are jumping around, that are doing more complicated rhythms. Those tend to be the hardest parts in a contemporary a cappella arrangement, the hardest parts to learn and remember, because sometimes also there's not that much logic to it because it has to cover the remaining notes. But a good arrangement will make everybody's part as melodic and as fun to sing and as easy to remember as absolutely possible. That said, it's a lot easier to sing the melody on any song than it is to sing a bunch of other complicated background parts to kind of fill out the sound.
So you probably won't tell me this one, but I take it all the girls, the actresses, and Sean Astin, all them who got the part in Pitch Perfect, there were probably other actresses considered for those parts, or were they considered because they were better singers, they could learn from you better, or was it just you had nothing to do with
I
that?
don't think that when Jason Moore was casting Pitch Perfect, and I think he admitted to this in the 10-year anniversary interviews around the whole movie, he cast the right people for the parts. I don't want to say typecasting per se, but he was looking for certain personality types, certain personalities, and he was really looking for comedians. So he wanted people who were funny, he wanted people who were charismatic, who had a lot of energy, and that could sing, but they weren't harmony singers and they weren't lead vocalists. So it was like they were the right people for the part, but they had to learn how to do the thing that the movie is based upon. And that was the heavy lifting during a cappella boot camp, the
Wow.
aggravating part. But then once we got it right, like I said, the second movie was a dream. It was so much easier to make because they knew how to do a cappella then.
So I take it with the sing off that you were part of. Um, what's the audition process like when it comes to getting an a cappella group together? How does that work?
Well, there's the getting the group together, and then there was auditioning for the show, which were two totally different things. Usually, a cappella ensembles are created by people who've already done a lot of a cappella, so they know to
Mm.
look for people who are already in choirs, and they're rarely just casting a wide net and taking anybody who's out there. That can happen sometimes when you're putting together a chorus, when you have 50 people on risers or even 20 people. You might take some people who haven't had specifically a cappella experience before, but it's rare when you have one on a part singing. If you have just 5 people, that you'd end up building an a cappella ensemble around someone who's never really done this thing before, because it's one of the most complicated forms of singing. To put it in one dimension, I think that can be pretty clearly understood. If you're singing in an opera, right? Let's say it's a 3-hour Wagner opera, right? It's 3 hours
Mm.
long. The tenor's only really going to be singing for about 20 minutes. There's 3 hours of music on stage, but there's only about 20 minutes of him singing arias and recitative and whatever, and he's not on stage the whole time or whatever. If you have an a cappella group that has 5 members and they're doing a 2-hour show, with rare exception, every single member is singing all 2 hours all the way through each song, right? Because they need to fill out the sound.
Huh.
Does that make sense? So they're singing, if they're not singing the melody, they're singing the background parts. They're singing oohs and ahs and bums and dits, and they're sounding like drums and guitars and trumpets and all of
Mhm.
these things. It's it's a wall of sound, and the fewer people on stage, the more each one of them needs to do. So, I tell people all the time, if they're used to singing lead vocal in a party band or something like that, and then they're moving over to a cappella, I tell them, guys, this is going to be the workout. This is very different. This is more of an Ironman competition than a marathon because you're going to be pushed the whole time. And they have to learn how to sing differently. Have to learn how to breathe differently and create a constant flow of sound. And the thing is, if they're moving around on stage and doing a lot of dancing, it's even more complicated because they need to breathe more often and they get more out of breath, but they still have to be making sound the entire time, which is a lot. It's really a lot.
So could you detect from like a 10 or 15 vocal choir who's out of tune and who's not simply by your
I can,
ear?
I can, but I'm a real specialist in this, and they could be singing 10-part harmony, but I'm like, ooh, the first altos, like that note, the C sharp there, that's a little bit under, and your vocal percussionist was rushing when they got to the beginning of the chorus and all this kind
Mhm.
of stuff. But that's my that's what I do, in the same way that someone who's a great editor can go through and read, a 300-page book and find every spelling error, every grammar error, like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't even catch that there was a period missing there. Like, that's what they do. That's what they're trained for. So the experiences that I've had singing and being a part of harmony ensembles my whole life has given me an ear and being a music director and arranging and the ability to really pinpoint and identify that's the thing that needs to be changed, that needs to be tweaked, that needs to be taken care of. Much like a chef who's like, oh, a little bit too much salt and we need more cinnamon here, and all of that.
So if you had like 5 tenors, 5 sopranos, 5 altos, and 5 mezzo sopranos, and you wanted to create a group, how long would it take you to bring them all together to make them sound good?
I mean, that really depends on the talent and the technique of the individual people. It's like, am I driving up to a bus stop and getting random people? Am I taking people who are already in choirs? I have these people sung a cappella before. What's their experience? What's their tradition? Do they know music theory? Do they play any instruments? How much have they
Mm.
sung? There's just a million questions there. It's like, if I gave you 20 people, could you make a football team? Well, what do they need?
No.
Like, right? Can all of them run? You know what I mean? Like these 20 people, do they all match pitch? Like it's such a complicated question. But ideally, yes, and really everybody can sing. The challenge in American culture is not that people can't sing, it's that they're not experienced. In the same way that if someone had rarely, if ever, picked up a basketball, how many free throws do you think they would reasonably make? The muscles in our vocal cords, they really are specific detailed muscles that are able to hit specific pitches, but that takes time to build up. Everybody has the ability to do it with very rare exception, if there's some vocal cord paralysis or something like that. Otherwise, almost everybody who says they're tone deaf, they're not tone deaf, they're actually just not experienced at doing this thing. And an interesting side note I'll mention is you've probably heard of the concept of perfect pitch, which has the ability to be able to tell like that note is what we call an A, that note's a D or whatever. There's a much higher level of perfect pitch in Asian cultures that have a tonal language. So, like Thai
Wow.
and Chinese, because they use tone as a part of their language. For instance, in Chinese, ma, 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 and ma are 5 different words, right?
Hmm.
I even did that right. So, like the shape of the tone indicates what the word means. And the fact that everybody there is used to listening for that has strengthened their ear and strengthened their vocal cords to the point where they're much better able to tell what a specific frequency is called in our nomenclature. 440 is an A and 220 is an A, et cetera, et cetera. It's all made up, but it's really just the ability to like pinpoint these different things. Um, and that's a
Yeah, like
learned behavior. It is not a genetic
mhm.
behavior.
So I take it that you have to have more than just yourself, or are you like the main man when it comes to we're going to teach these people how to do a cappella, or do you have others with you who can give you support or give you ideas? Like how does that work?
Okay, it really depends on the individuals. So, usually when I'm going to work with a choir, there's a director who's already directing the choir, and I come in and I coach them, right? So it's like I'm the expert who gets brought in to like teach them certain things and work with them at a high level or whatever. Um, you absolutely can have one person who creates an elementary school choir, a middle school choir, a high school choir, a college choir, an adult choir, any
Hmm.
style, classical, barbershop, doo-wop, pop, jazz, you name it. Um, but if I'm doing something in a really short period of time, like we're making a television show and we have 5 days to get, 12 different groups to learn 3 songs each and be ready to perform them at the highest level on stage, then it's good for me to have a staff because I can only be in one place at a particular time. Um, so it's kind of like that, and it's a pleasure to work on shows like that because it's really fun to be with other people with a similar skill set, and in a short period of time, whip everything into shape.
So, outside of a basic evaluation of musical ability, if a group seeks to gauge someone's personality fit, should it be considered one or two questions really matter?
I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean?
Let's say I think it means that like if you don't, the members, some of them don't get along with each other. Can they say, I don't
Oh,
want to be singing with this person, or I don't want to be
yeah.
singing with this person? Our personalities kind of clash. How do you make that work? Or you don't?
Well, you do. You do make it work. You have to make it work. The saying that I have is you can't create vocal harmony without interpersonal harmony. And the reason I say that is, of course, two people can stand next to each other and sing, and then you end up having harmony. But a great vocal harmony group requires people to look at each other, listen to each other, follow each other, have like a simpatico, so they can really match the timing, match the vowels, match the rhythms. Um, and so look, we're humans, and there are always issues that come up between people: ego issues, misunderstanding issues, differences in taste and style and desires and goals, and whatever it is. You're late, you didn't learn your music, like whatever. But the bottom line is, you got to work these things out within your group, or else they'll start to eat away at your ability to really build the interpersonal connection and the musical connection that makes the music great. And I've seen it time and again. It's not impossible to make vocal harmony with people who are not getting along, but it's much better when they do.
I know, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Christian contemporary group GLAD,
Of
and then
course.
the a cappella gospel band. I think they go by AVB or something.
Well,
Amazing.
there's AVB, and there's a group a cappella. All those guys out of Paris, Tennessee.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know Keith Lancaster and that whole tradition. Yeah, I
it's
mean, it's
amazing.
all amazing singing. Yes.
So, what was it like to share the stage with Luciano Pavarotti?
Okay, well, I was like 9 years old at the time, and my
Still,
parents
I
were
mean, come
overjoyed I
on,
was performing with
Luciano.
him. Oh, yeah, a wonderful guy, and I remember they went to me and they said, like, "Make sure you've gotta go talk to him and spend some time with him." So, I'm the youngest one on stage, I'm tiny there, and we're during Turandot, and it's, Montserrat Caballé, and, like, amazing productions here, San Francisco Opera. I think someone found a recording of it online or whatever, and it was great to listen back to it. Um, and I remember walking up and talking to him at one point, and this was before he had made, like, Hello, Giorgio and these movies, and he'd really taken off in the public eye, whatever, because this is back in, ooh, 1979. I'm gonna say something like that, 78. So I just remember telling my parents afterwards, they said, like, so what was it like talking to him? And I said, he's a very nice man, but his English is not very good.
Did you
But
ever?
he was very warm-hearted, and it was
Wow,
a pleasure to hear him sing Nessun Dorma every single night. I would like leave my elementary school and go straight to the boys' chorus, and the boys' chorus guys were all flirting with the girls' chorus girls, except I was 9, so I had no interest in any of that. So I just took my Encyclopedia Browns and Brown novels and little mystery books, and I sat in a costume trunk up on the 4th floor and just read when we were off stage.
it's amazing. I consider Nessun Dorma my Mount Everest song because it's very difficult to sing that song, and I've been trying to sing it for years. And you want to say proper phonetics like Nessun Dorm with the and you're
Uh-huh.
saying Nessun Dorma and like Nessun Dorma, it's Nessun Dor. And so
Yes,
it's
yes.
really difficult. So that's what I call my Mount Everest. But I see that I was actually I was reading this. I was actually listening to the best of college a cappella or bocas. I got a few of them on my Spotify.
Oh, great.
Beautiful job. Beautiful book. Just one song they did called First Train Coming, which is Imogen Heap song.
Yeah,
Beautiful. I'm like, whoa, I love this.
yeah.
I love how
And these are
it's
all
a
amateur
cappella.
college singers. I mean, that back in the early 90s, I wanted to popularize this music, so I came up with the idea of having, one song from all these different college groups, and then they would all sell it at their concerts, so it started to spread the word about the college a cappella sound. And I mean, now we've been going on like over 25 years of this. I think it's a wonderful tradition, and it's really great to see and hear how many people in the general public are falling in love with a cappella through these young amateur performances. Maybe one guy in each group, one woman, one person is the music director, and everybody else, they're pre-med, they're studying English, they're a computer science major or whatever, and they just happen to sing in the a cappella group for fun. And it's incredible what they're all able to do.
That's amazing with all your accolades and what you do. And you got 6 books, a cappella arranging, a cappella, the heart of vocal harmony, a cappella warm-ups for pop and jazz choir. So you want to sing a cappella, all these books. So what will they teach me? What are they
Well, a
about?
cappella arranging was the first and kind of the definitive tome about how to arrange a cappella, particularly popular a cappella, so that people are able to have this like wall of sound, the way you hear music on the radio, but it's all voices. And in fact, with my co-author Dylan Bell, I'm just now wrapping up the second advanced version, book. A decade later, it came out. It was about 10 years ago, and that book is due on Friday. So we're putting together the last little final touches on it, and it'll be out early next year. The Heart of Vocal Harmony is a different angle, and it's something that's for everybody who sings in any kind of choir, vocal harmony ensemble. I found that groups spend so much time focusing on notes and rhythms, and they just don't really understand how to sing with consistent emotional focus, and to get themselves in the moment. So I spent a lot of time doing research and learning how to how to properly focus, energize, and motivate a group of people to sing with consistent, unified emotional expression. And that's the book, Heart of Vocal Harmony.
That's amazing. And someone like you that does all this, how do you manage your mental health? What do you do to just, keep sane?
Well, the mental health piece is easy. I mean, there's little in human experience that is more cathartic, more uplifting, and more affirming of humanity than singing with other people. So, for me, I joke that like when I'm getting paid to go do a job, I'm getting paid to sleep in a hotel room. I'm getting paid to be away from my family. I'm getting paid to be on an airplane. When I actually go in and spend time with the group, I'll do that for free. Like, that's fun. It's wonderful. And generally speaking, there really aren't a lot of jerks in vocal harmony, right? The people who are the narcissists, the people who are like, it's all about me, they don't do well in an ensemble like that. The beauty of a vocal ensemble is that the sum is greater than the individual parts. The connection between people is the really resonant message, and the joy and the messages that it teaches are so powerful. It's like being on the best sports team possible, but when you do it right, you always win. And it's something I think that we've lost a lot of in our Western culture with all of this focus on STEM and people losing the real connection they have to other humans and the ability to use the arts to soothe our souls. So I would say if you walk into any any campus, the kids who are supporting themselves best and have the best kind of connected social infrastructure, that are in touch with their emotions and dealing with things and feel support and all that, it's the kids in the choir and the kids in the theater department. I mean, they're really the ones who are most in tune with these aspects and helping themselves and each other's the most.
It's amazing. I remember when we first met on the platform, you did the trumpet, you did the guitar. How long did it take you to learn beatboxing so it doesn't sound like a raspberry?
Well, I didn't really like it wasn't all at once. Basically, I was in college and I wanted to be able to do pop music. I wanted to be able to sing the songs with my a cappella group in college, the Tufts Beelzebubs. I wanted to be able to sing the songs that were blasting out of everyone's college dorm rooms. Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Peter Gabriel and Duran Duran, and the songs that just didn't work with a shooby doo wop and a do do dit dit ah ah like behind them. So it was really just an exploration of how do you use your voice to fill out the rest of the sound and to make drums, to make guitars, to make trumpets, to make, this amazing, well-rounded experience.
because I saw this video of this guy playing the electric guitar, and the other guy was beatboxing electric guitar in the microphone. I was like, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people who do this.
Yeah, and I also noticed you shared the stage with Musicland, Ray Charles, James Brown, Cosby, Stills, and Nash. What was working with the Four Tops? Like, what is it that you? So you just shared the stage with him. You didn't teach them anything.
Well, no, this is back when I was young. I graduated college in '91, and I started the first a cappella group with a designated vocal percussionist. We were called the House Jacks. And we were very in demand to be an opening act because what's better than a cappella to go slide out in front of the band on stage and all that kind of stuff. So Ray Charles, James Brown, like all these groups that you say, we would
Mhm.
go out and perform, 20, 30-minute set as the opening act whenever they came through Northern California. It was really, really, really fun. And then backstage, you get to talk to these people and, talk to James Brown and understand about half of what he said. He was, I swear, I was doing my best. It wasn't easy. But these people are legends and they knew the industry and all that kind of stuff. And we were doing something new and it was really fun to make our music for them and to hopefully bring a little joy back into their lives since they've brought us so much joy.
That's amazing. But you did produce a Straight No Chaser album.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah. A couple of them.
like Indiana Christmas, my favorite. That's a great song.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
yeah.
great
I mean, the Stranger Chaser guys are fantastic, and their story is second to none. I mean, they'd all graduated, and for their 10-year anniversary, they posted a live concert video on YouTube. Went viral. They got a phone call from the head of Atlantic Records, and next thing they knew, they were in the studio making Christmas album, and then went on tour and never looked back. They've been full time ever since. I mean, that's not a common thing, and with 10 people in the group, like so much of it was like really, but it was the early days of going viral and what's possible with with a viral music act. And guess what? That's the way music is now. Other music platforms, like, they don't matter as much. If you can go viral and you've got enough viral videos and the ability to tour, like, on top of that, that's a music, you know, career. Having a record deal doesn't even matter that much. You'll make more money if you sell your own tracks through your own online platforms and at your own concerts. Make a lot more money.
Well, let's say I want to get together a vocal band or a cappella group, call ourselves a certain name. Um, do I have to call someone like you, or do I just get two, three of my friends say let's create a group? Okay, you
Oh,
ready?
nobody's in charge, and that's the
Oh,
beautiful thing. I mean, the barbershop world is very much organized by these kind of monolithic organizations that set the standards and have dues and fees and competitions, and these are the arrangements and the procedures. But they are really there to kind of foster and promote a particular style of music. When it comes to contemporary a cappella, no rules. Music directors who want to start an a cappella group in their school with their middle schoolers, with their high schoolers, with their college students, they can do it. College students who just want to, like, start another a cappella group at campus because they didn't get in the one that they wanted to, or they want a different style one or whatever, they just start it. People want to start if you want to start a garage band, great. Well, same thing with a cappella. You get some friends together, you start rehearsing on Tuesday nights, and hopefully you get a gig at the local farmers market and you go from there.
so what's next for you? Okay, you don't have to give me any spoilers, but apparently the Pitch Perfect girls want to have a fourth movie. Would they still be able to sing, or do you have to do a little bit of like, let's get you a little bit like, do you know if there's going to be a Pitch Perfect 4 or no?
Don't know. I don't know,
No, okay.
and I'm sure if I did know, I wouldn't be able to tell you before it was announced in Variety or whatever. But the bottom line is this: of course, they want to make a fourth movie. The movies were wonderful and fun and everything like that. As
Yeah.
we discussed, the third movie was not was not the greatest. And Elizabeth Banks and her husband Max, who really are the creative helm of the production team, they're not going to do anything unless it's amazing. We had a wonderful time making the Bumper in Berlin television show on Peacock, and it was like the fastest viewed show they'd ever had on the network, and the ratings were good, and we got greenlit for a second season. But then everything just got canceled. Like, all of the streaming
Mm.
platforms are pulling way back. There's so much less money, and they all have to justify and start making money. They were all, Disney Plus was losing $4 billion a year. It was a
Yeah.
crazy arms race, basically. So the golden age of unexpected and creative streaming television, I think, is now over, and everybody's kind of reverting back to the norm and being much safer, and having to cost justify everything. So I don't think the Pitch Perfect brand is done at all. I'm sure there are going to be more new cool things that are going to come out of it, but I'm not exactly sure what that is yet. But I do know we're in great hands with Liz and Max at the helm, and I'll of course be on board, happily working on whatever it is they whip up.
Well, what if you decided you didn't want to do it anymore? Is there someone else you know that can do it just as well as you?
Well, there are other people, of course, I would send them in that direction, but this is my life's work, spreading harmony through harmony, and there's no way I would
Mm.
say no. It's too much fun. I love it. I mean, this is, you get a bunch of people together singing pop songs and having fun. And yes, there are boring parts of making a movie. And yes, sitting there in the audience for a 12-hour day and watching, 10 actresses making sure they're lip syncing all 10 of their parts exactly the right way, take after take. That's a little boring and a little exhausting, but it is absolutely worth it for the final product and the joy that these movies bring everyone.
That's funny. After speaking to you before, was when I was taking vocal lessons, they literally had a sign on the door saying Saturday's harmony lessons. And I'm like, you have to learn to do harmony? Now that I've
You know,
spoken to you, yes, you do.
well, it is a learned skill. It's more complicated than just talking or just singing the melody. That's
Wow.
that's absolutely the
Look,
case.
can you tell me if Anna Kendrick's singing career was because of Pitch Perfect, or did she have a talent for singing? Because the first time I
Oh,
saw her
yeah,
was in a movie
she
called
came
Up
from
in the Air
musical
with George
theater, so
Clooney.
obviously she had a talent for singing.
Okay.
She'd been singing for quite a while, and did a solid job of all of that. But like I said, singing lead is different from singing harmony parts.
Yeah, I remember that scene from Up in the Air with George Clooney where she was in the bar karaokeing. She
Sure.
sounded terrible, and I think she did that on purpose because 'cause she's got a
I
beautiful voice.
obviously she Anna Kendrick's very she's very talented, but she's also very in control of her image. So she wouldn't have sung poorly unless it was intentional. I can assure you that.
So, now we have Pitch Perfect Bumper in Berlin, so are you working with that as well?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did the first season, and then the second season was unfortunately just canceled on Peacock, but something else will come.
Mm, that's awesome. So, do you have any before we end the stream, do you have, any more groups you're working at? Are we gonna expect another
Oh,
group of
tons.
act
I just got back from Saudi Arabia with this wonderful new project called Disney the Castle, which is
Really?
basically an entire music fair with multiple different tents with different themed music experiences going on. And the hope is that that will start popping up in other countries and regions around the world. It wasn't all a cappella by any stretch, but it was still fun to be the music director for that and continue working
Yeah.
with Disney. Um, I've got trips next year to many of the 50 states, as well as
Mhm.
Brazil, let's see, Panama, Costa Rica, Croatia, England,
Wow.
Denmark, Italy,
Nice. Nice.
Korea, New Zealand, Australia. I mean, I'm all over and this is just from like January through July. So I'm all over the place, and I love, love, love working with groups in different places for different reasons. I have an annual show at Carnegie Hall. I'll be one of the jury for the World Choir Games, um, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of great singing out there, and it's such a pleasure to be able to be there for it. Thank you so much for having me and asking like interesting questions and taking the discussion in these various paths.
So I take it that if I wanna take, harmonization, I would have well, I can't call you, I would call the Canadian version, would be a vocal coach, or is that a totally different
Sure, but a vocal
thing?
coach usually is going to be working with an individual singer, and there are many
Mm,
more of those. Your best bet, if you want to sing harmony and you want to see what this is like, join a vocal harmony group, join an ensemble. It could be your local church choir, it could be a community choir, but there are also some great barbershop choirs out there. There's some wonderful pop choirs out there. And where are you located?
Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, oh, the sound crowds out there, like they're amazing. So, type like pop a cappella or pop choir in to a Google search for Toronto, and you'll see some great groups pop up. Scott's a director, and they're fantastic.
That's awesome. Wow, my friend, I really appreciate this. And the time went so fast. And oh, I will look forward to having you on the platform again in a few months, like next year, if you don't mind, unless you're
My
busy,
pleasure.
but we can always find something. But I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Um,
Thanks. Pleasure to be back
do
on
you have,
stage.
yes, do you have any advice you want to give to our audience who are maybe wanting to seek this out?
Yeah, what I would say is if it sounds like it's fun, it's even more fun doing it. Like if you are listening to this and you're thinking like, "Wow, maybe it would be fun to sing in a harmony group, but I don't have a lot of experience." Doesn't matter. There are many, many vocal harmony groups out there, including the barbershop courses I was talking about, that are overjoyed to have people come and join who have little or no experience. So go find choirs. And if one of them says, "Well, we don't have room right now, or you're not quite right for us," fine, move on, find another one, because it will fill your heart with joy. It'll fill your life with song. You'll have a built-in group of friends and you'll never look back. Sing for your life. That's what I'm saying. Sing for your life.
Or someone like me just decide to create one myself and find the people. I guess that'll
Yeah,
work too.
yeah, you absolutely can do that as well. And with the internet and everything nowadays, getting together some locals and have them come over for a like just a one night singing jam and then see if it turns into something.
Excellent, my friend. Send me the link so that we can include that as well. Thank you, my friend.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. Okay, everyone. Deke Sharon, a cappella artist.